One of my advanced Dungeons & Dragons buddies from years ago always played a thief. And as we went through various campaigns, we played D&D together for a couple of years with a pretty regular weekly group. And this player, as his thief leveled up, he would basically just try and steal everything he possibly could in the adventure. And I was okay with it because I kind of have an open D&D policy as a dungeon master, with the idea being that you can try and pick pockets. You can try to utilize your thief skills, but you might get caught. And if you get caught, there will be consequences. And the party, because they're associated with you, will have to deal with those consequences. And if we're playing in a campaign, those consequences will carry over and reputation. So think about it, but really, really think about it. And not everyone's going to be carrying tons of loot and tons of treasure on there. So this escalates literally over a year or two, where emboldened and leveling up his thief pretty quick, because in AD&D a thief levels up much quicker, right? You're playing Baldur's Gate, the thief or the thief kits. It levels up quickly compared to the other classes on there, whether it's your primary character or some of the NPC tunes that you're playing. But it got to the point where now he started stealing from the party. And the party would notice, the other players would notice, you get your share of the loot, you've got your 3 gems. At the end of the gaming session, they'd go to sell it. And I, as a DM, be like, well, you touch your money pouch and the gems are gone. That's because I got passed a note under the table, and my buddy wanted to try and steal from the party, and he was successful, and I passed it back and forth and did all that. But I say this because the focus of our game became pickpocketing. And while we played tactical and we were there for the narrative, it made for some interesting moments. So that got me really recently focusing on pickpockets in Baldur's Gate. And it's been a long, long time since I focused on that. Certainly, I think a lot of players want to develop the most alpha class possible, crunching the numbers, getting the most bonuses, the best gear, the best party. That's one way to play the game. Certainly, you need a little bit of that in the game, because there are certain fights that are brutal if you're looking to run through the entire saga. Not all the fights are easy on there, and some are deliberately AD&D, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons versus D&D 5.0, which is just auto-win. AD&D is hard. It's much, much harder. Some of the encounters from the monster manual in pen and paper are made to be very hard, very challenging, or possibly not even beatable. Baldur's Gate, a couple of encounters, not only took that over there fighting some of the dragons, but accelerated it to even crazier levels, making some of those fights artificially harder on there. So you need a little bit of ruthlessness. You need a little bit of Math Hammer really focusing on that. But then after you've made a run through a couple of times playing your characters and you kind of know the story, you want to be a little more laid back. You want to try and do all the side quests. You're not in such a rush to level up and to win and to beat the story on there. You'll make your way. There's a lot of nice side detours in the Forgotten Realms, a lot of nice things to see. And I find if you're playing a little bit more casual, pickpockets is worth the narrative on there, because there are some interesting items, no spoilers. I mean, the lists are out there if you want to look online, but discovery is so much in the fun, and a lot of these items, you can get some ideas just by listening to the narrative and seeing the location of certain characters. You get an idea of who has what. There are some really good items carried by NPCs in the game, so it's refreshing to liberate those. You don't even have to be a Kender to do it. And then there's also some items that, to try and maintain game balance, so maybe you're going to play a little more aggressively. To maintain game balance, there's this idea that not only in magic items, but in consumables, where potions are a great example. Some of the higher stacked giant potions, they really jack you up. The magic blocking potions are extremely powerful in Baldur's Gate, especially at the lower mage levels. The script is kind of predictable, right? Mage armor up, so start with mirror images, then we're going to maybe cast magic missile. Well, actually, it's more like mirror image, then some sort of crowd control, Dominate, Feeble Mind, Horror on there. Get the party running around, because if you have a full party, someone's going to fail that save and be wandering around. And then start hitting with the damage spells. Magic Missile, Drain, Melf's Acid Arrow is a really popular one on there because it has the interrupt and it can potentially do a couple of turns of damage. So if you can block that, and certain monsters that charm you, if you can block that, that is massive. So because it's at the lower spell levels and the difficulty is finite in Baldur's Gate, they limit that by the number of magic blocking and magic resistance potions that you can find. And at the lower levels, magic resistance, there's only one NPC that you can grab. Actually two. I take that back. Actually two if you have the full expanded version and play that out on there. They have innate magic resistance. Some character classes, Wizard Slayer, you can generate a small amount. There's a couple of items like the Robes of the Archmage that can generate a little bit, but those numbers are not going to reliably save you from magic. Like it might once or twice in the game, and I'm not saying that's not valuable. Magic resistance has always been huge in AD&D, but in BG1, you're limited just simply by the lower levels and how they operate on there. Pickpocketing gives you a chance to bypass some of these things, because some of the items when you steal, there are random tables. It's kind of like almost like a little bit of a wild mage. These random tables that are going to pull gems, or they're going to pull potions on there. And if you farm it out enough, and if the NPC has a high enough something rating, I don't exactly know what that rating is with the engine behind, but you could potentially draw magic blocking potions. You could potentially draw invisibility potions and some of these other potions that are out there. That makes picking pockets very fun, very rewarding, and an interesting aspect. Now, certainly I'm not going to say like pickpocket every single NPC on every single screen. You can get an idea of who has what, and hitting up the temples, hitting up the inns, hitting up various places where nobility is in Baldur's Gate gives you a much, much, much better chance on there. But it's an interesting kind of soft skill to consider and explore if you're looking for a more casual aspect to the game.